Hello everyone, Basilio is with you. Today is Thursday or Friday, and I am answering your questions. Let me remind you that I answer your questions for free on the freshlife28.ru website. Here you can click, go to the FAQ section, ask a question, well, let's just say, and get an answer. Summer is coming soon, and everyone, of course, is concerned about their appearance and is trying to get themselves into some kind of more or less good shape. I was often asked questions about weight loss and dieting, and I noticed, as before, that people confuse the concept of a cutting diet and a diet for weight loss. What is the difference between the cutting diet, whether it exists, whether you need a cutting diet or just a diet for weight loss? We will discuss today. Let's define what a cutting diet is, what a regular diet is, how they differ, and what they are used for. In both cases, I must say right away, the cutting diet and the regular diet are, although similar at first glance, but completely different things. A diet is a temporary change in diet in order to bring the total body weight into a more or less acceptable form. It usually comes down to the numbers on the scales and trying to fit into summer things, without taking into account such important aspects as maintaining muscle mass, general health, and metabolic balance. Cutting diet is a focused process of reducing subcutaneous fat and excess water while preserving as much muscle mass as possible, which requires stricter control over diet and training. The phrase maximum preservation of muscle mass negates all the external similarity of these two processes and immediately takes the cutting diet to a completely different level. Unlike a regular diet, where the goal is simply to lose weight, the goal here is to maintain the result achieved at the weight gain stage. What happens? Before starting the cutting diet, an athlete must undergo a serious stage of training to build up the meat. This period includes intense strength training aimed at muscle growth and a well-structured nutrition. In order to gain muscle mass, you need to eat more calories than you spend, that is, to eat with a calorie surplus. In addition to training, these are important conditions for the growth of muscle tissue. At the same time, an accumulation of some percentage in fat inevitably occurs. So, in order to get rid of the fatty subcutaneous layer, the cutting diet is used. This is a special diet that is often used in combination with special workouts to effectively remove subcutaneous fat and maximize the preservation of muscle mass. When an athlete trains and gains muscle mass, his body can retain excess water, and sometimes nutritional errors occur, which affects overall results. These factors can slow down the process, which leads to a decrease in the visibility of the muscle relief and deterioration of the overall shape, despite the successful buildup of mass. And the huge muscle relief is not visible because of this. That is, as they usually say, the athlete has lost the clarity of muscle relief. In order to demonstrate their physique by the summer, for competitions or a photo shoot, an athlete needs not only to effectively get rid of subcutaneous fat and excess water, but also, most importantly, to preserve hard-gained muscles, meat. This process requires a careful approach, because if you do not take into account all the nuances, the body can start using up muscles, and only then switch to burning fat reserves. Athletes often say that they're falling apart when, after months of building mass and intense training, a person decides to switch to a calorie deficit. This decision can lead to loss of muscle mass, which negatively affects the relief. However, it is important to understand that any diet that aims to reduce body fat is accompanied by a calorie deficit, not a surplus. This means that a person should eat fewer calories than he spends. In conditions of calorie deficit, the body begins to activate fat-burning mechanisms, while hormones with a lipolytic effect enter the blood, which contributes to the destruction of fat cells and weight loss. And so, in order to maintain muscle mass and get rid exclusively of fat, although the muscle mass will still be partially lost, in order not to crumble, the athlete continues to train on a calorie deficit, which is very difficult physically and psychologically. As a rule, he also uses various pharmacological preparations. In the future, this is necessary to enhance the effect, because the smaller the fat layer, the less lipolytic hormones the body produces, and the more difficult it is to lose weight. Reducing body fat from 30% to 25% is very easy. But, for example, it is very difficult to reduce it from 10% to 4% for a competitive form. At the same time, he must also preserve his muscle mass as much as possible. Therefore, to summarize, The cutting diet only makes sense if you have hypertrophied muscle mass. That is, if you have been training for 2 to 3 years. If you didn't train with weights for about 2 to 3 years before you decided to use the cutting diet, then most likely you should forget about the cutting diet and not bother with it, because it is quite an expensive pleasure. And this has a corresponding effect on the psyche. This is not just an interval diet for a month, but 8 to 12 weeks of fairly strict nutrition and intensive training with a calorie deficit. As I have already said, this is not a cheap pleasure, since various drugs are used, and all this costs a decent amount of money. In addition, fat burners that an athlete takes during this period have a strong effect on the cardiovascular system and distribute the load on the heart. This can lead to increased blood pressure and increased heart rate, which is especially dangerous without the necessary experience. If you are not prepared and trained, it is better for you not to do this, so as not to harm your health. The main reason why using the cutting diet makes sense is the presence of pronounced hypertrophied muscle mass. That is why, before starting this process, you first need to focus on gaining muscle mass, and then proceed to the stage of drawing it. Then this procedure will make sense, otherwise not. If you have never worked out in a gym, then you simply do not have that hypertrophied muscle mass that is worth demonstrating and emphasizing. Naturally, during weight loss, when you use a diet, you lose some of your muscle mass along with fat. However, a person who does not exercise has just as much muscle as is required for daily activity. That is, there are enough of them to go to the store, put your ass on the bus or in the car, drive to work, sit there in front of the computer, and other daily activities. Your body won't let you lose less than you need to live. It's another matter if you already have a lot of muscle due to training. In conditions of calorie deficit without support, it is the muscle fibers that will begin to break down first, and only then the fat. Therefore, if you haven't been exercising, don't confuse the cutting diet and the regular summer weight loss diet. The cutting diet is suitable for those who already have developed muscles and want to emphasize the relief. The usual weight loss diet simply reduces the total weight without taking into account body composition. As I said before, the summer diet is just certain dietary restrictions and possibly lifestyle restrictions in order to fit into summer clothes. At the same time, the loss of muscles in losing weight, as a rule, no one cares. People don't care much about this because their goal is different, to remove their belly and get into summer jeans. And what causes weight loss, muscle, fat, or both, usually doesn't matter on a regular diet. For those who just use a diet for the summer, there is no difference. Therefore, I repeat once again, the cutting diet and the regular diet are different things with different goals. And I also want to draw your attention to this. If you are going to get your body in shape by the summer, do not choose mono diets and so-called trendy diets, for example, detox diets. They are harmful to the body. Such methods of weight loss can lead to a lack of nutrients, a slowdown in metabolism, and a deterioration in well-being. Instead, it's better to stick to a balanced diet that includes enough protein, fat, and carbohydrates, as well as physical activity. Only an integrated approach will help not only to lose weight, but also to maintain health, energy, and a good mood for the whole summer. Just switch to proper nutrition. You don't have to rape your body, you don't have to harm your health, because you can perfectly lose weight on proper nutrition, but you won't harm your health. Be beautiful, stay healthy, and better yet, start a new life on Monday. Don't give it up after a couple of days and be awesome. It's way cooler than just losing 22 pounds. It was Basilio. Bye-bye, and see you next week.